I think we can say a little bit more about ourselves, our background. So we were both coming from HR, but now we're in a client-facing role, which probably is quite unusual. We find it's fantastic to bring all our learnings, our knowledge and expertise to clients from what we have learned in the HR function. So I spent roughly 10 years in learning and development and leadership development, and now I'm working with global leading organizations to help them to transform their work environments, that they can augment their performance by changing very intentionally their work environments.
Hello everyone, so I'm Karin, and first of all I need to say that it's so nice to see such a big room with so many women at the table. You know?
Thank you.
We love you guys, but you know, from where we are coming, this is not often the case. So just to say a few things on my background, as Lisa mentioned, we are both from HR. Until summer 2017, I was the HR director for a company in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And this is when our CEO came to me and asked me if I would move to something different. And I said, why not, you know? And he said, I need you to be in front of customers. And I said, okay, why HR in front of customers? And he said, actually, a lot of what we have to discuss with customers is about culture, change management, transformation, and those topics are very HR related. And you've helped us at Steelcase to drive that, and I want to get the credit of that and take it outside. And this is when I took the responsibility for our consulting teams and designers. So actually, I'm spending time with customers to talk about how space can help transform culture and how change management is important. And maybe just a few words on to connect with Mr. Hogan. I want to say, you know, I've used Hogan as HR a lot of times. Actually, we do that for all leadership positions. And I can testify that it's very, very important to do it. I need to say that we did not always listen to the results, and every time we did not, we failed. It's very predictive, and that's one of the big learning I had on onboarding people in the company. Thank you.
So, as you can see from our title, we'll have a heavy focus on culture today. We again think this is very much related to leadership as well. So the way we are looking at environments is really by how you would typically use also a Hogan assessment. So when we're going through space and we are experiencing space, we have clear signals that would tell us something about the culture, and we will give you a little bit more insights into how we are doing it and where we think the journey is going, and how you as HR can also play a role in transforming organizations through space. So a little bit about ourselves, not so much because we were really humble today after the humility talk we had, but still wanted to give you a glimpse because obviously Steelcase is not a brand that is known heavily, and maybe you want to also know a bit more about ourselves. So we are 11,000 people worldwide, globally. Originally we are coming from the US, Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're not on our own, so as you can see today, we are also coming together with our partner, our leader partner in Romania, COS, and that's the case in many other countries as well. That's making us very much stronger for our customers. We're a manufacturing organization or company, so we have 12 factories globally. We always manufacture in for example, in Europe for European customers, in the US for America's customers, or in South America, and in Asia for Asian customer. That's our philosophy. We're over 100 years old as a company, so actually founded in 1912. And what you can see here is a product and a patent that we got in the year of 1914 and it's actually a fireproof dustbin, right? So there were a lot of paper. So talking about digital, in the past there was a lot of paper in offices, and this was coming together with people still smoking in the office. So you can imagine if you have a dustbin out of wood and you put paper into it, and then you have a cigar that was causing fire, and we understood there needs to be a different solution. So that's back over 100 years ago. And then we wanted to show you a solution that we just launched this year, which is obviously more getting into the digital world and the world of technology. It's not the upper part. So the upper part is with our partner from Microsoft. It's a screen that can do a lot more than just displaying. So it's an interactive collaboration tool. And together with Microsoft, we designed the lower part, because one of the key learnings we had and the data was that people wanted to be more mobile with their ideas. So they don't want that their ideas just stay in one room. They wanted to move their work, their ideas, their collaboration everywhere in the office. So you can already see how do we approach products and how we develop them is by really understanding people and by understanding data. And an interesting one, also building on what we just heard before, it's all about unlocking human promise for us, right? So it doesn't make sense to just go out in the world and say, we understand, we know what you need, and we are so shiny, and that's what you need to establish as well. So for us, it's really about understanding the human, and then with our solutions to unlock the human promise. What we've learned over time is that what impacts unlocking human promise is the experience that people have with each other, with their leaders, right? What is the experience they're having, but also in their surrounding. So how does their environment helps to drive different behavior? So when we are coming back to the idea of a charismatic leader, where would you see a charismatic leader in the office? Maybe you have an idea. Someone? Where would they typically be? In the corner office, behind the doors, and a little tiger outside of that office to prevent that anyone would come in. So it's difficult if you're in that context to get feedback, right? To everything we heard before, what makes a humble, a human leader when you are in a certain setup. And that's what often people do not realize, that they are communicating also through their choices of environments and through the design of the environment. We believe that we need to create memorable experience, very different experience, because looking at how digital transformation is influencing us as humans is that a lot of the work that has been done from humans in the past are taking over. So we actually could be quite happy because it's often boring stuff that we think we need still to do, but actually a machine can do much better. So we think that creativity then is much more provoked by very different experiences. And therefore, what we need to understand is what is the social aspect of work? And what we mean by that is what is creating certain dynamics. So coming back to what leadership is about, so we need to understand why people, or a lot of people, hate their bosses, right? So what is the experience that these bosses are creating that people have a very negative experience? But we also need to understand the interactions and also how these are changing over time, and what does it mean for a business that wants to flourish and that wants to create a sustainable organization. So typically when we are talking to organizations, and you would all agree talking to your business leaders, they would tell you what? What do they ultimately want? Any idea for their business? success. What is success? Growth, right? So they would say growth, and often, unfortunately, this is a number in a spreadsheet, whereas we as human-oriented people here in the room, growth for us has many more aspects, right? It's about leadership, it's about developing people, it's about making sure that we have the right skills in the organization to achieve things. So on one side, you have this notion of what an organization wants. But in order to achieve that, we have people that make the organization, right? So an organization without people is just literally nothing. And here we have again this notion of want and need, so that we want to point out as very important, because you can go to people and say, okay, what do you want to stay here and to work for us? And they would come with a whole lot of things, right? They would say free food would be great. Free coffee, by the way, is great as well. So, give me more money. But we heard that people are, even for some experiences, they would say, I accept a pay cut, right? So are we aware of what people are looking for, that they would even say, hey, I don't need to have the highest salary, I can get more elsewhere, but what I get in this organization is so special and unique that I will join that organization. So again, what do we need in order to thrive as organization? And you will see some things that everyone would say, hey, this is great, playful, humor, fantastic. But then you look at, debates, conflicts, right? Would everyone say like, yes, I want that? No, right? So typically humans, they don't want conflicts, they don't want debates. But this is needed for an organization to thrive, because if you want to be innovative and you want to create new things, you need to have debates, you need to handle conflicts, and maybe even have to initiate it. Risk-taking is also not something that humans inherit as something, yes, I go out, I wake up and say, what is the next risk that I can take? But as HR leaders, this is another typical buzzword that we take. Joining our company, you need to be a great risk taker. Here you can thrive and so on. So there are lots of things that organizations are nowadays looking for, because everything is so much faster. We are looking for even more growth, a lot of complex topics. So then, what is the growth culture that we need in order to achieve something different, something more human, as we have heard before, something more sustainable in terms of growth? And that's where Karin is going to tell us a bit more about.
Thank you, Lisa. So first, I would like to say that we are not experts in growth culture, right? Steelcase is doing a lot of research on workers, and the workplace. So today is not about sharing an expertise, but we want to share with you our own experience. So it's really a testimony of what we've done for ourselves, the challenges we faced, the opportunities we've looked at, and the solution we created. So what I'm going to talk about now, things that can be general on some aspect, but also things that worked for us and might not work for all companies. So then all companies would have to reflect on the solution. But I think it's a way to inspire and help people think about their own solution. So the growth culture is, as Lisa mentioned, a big topic for organization. If we don't grow, then very quickly we are out of the game. And we know as HR that culture is a fantastic topic, but it's also something very, very difficult to make evolve. And maybe this is where I would share the definition we use within Steelcase for culture. So for us, the culture is really the sum of behaviors that people display over time in the organization. So that's what we mean by culture in this presentation. And changing behaviors is very, very difficult. So for HR, I think it's great momentum because all CEOs are talking about culture. So I think we don't need to make the case for how culture is important. But now we are really struggling with how do we help them to transform the culture and get to the stage they want to go. So at Steelcase, we believe that there are 3 key pillars for our success. So of course, there is the strategy. We want to know where we go and how we will win. So at Steelcase, we talk about where we play and how we'll win. So the strategy is key. You need to have a vision for the future. On top of the strategy, you need to have a brand. Your brand is really important. It's telling a lot on who you are, and of course, it's impacting the vision that your customers, your suppliers, your employees have about your company. But at the end, the third key pillar is culture. And here you can see a quote from Peter Drucker. He has been mentioned 2 times already this morning, so I think he's really someone very important on the topic of culture and leadership. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you can have the best strategy, you can have the best brand, but if you don't have the right culture, it's very unlikely that you will be successful. What we've been noticing is that there is a gap between what you have and what you need, and this is culture. And here, if I just go back to Steelcase, so Lisa mentioned that we are quite an old company, over 100 years, we had to change several times. That's the only way to stay in market, for such a long time. And a few years ago, our CEO was reflecting on the culture, and he wanted to reflect on the behaviors people are displaying, and he was wondering if those behaviors would still bring us to the next 100 years. So this is when we launched, and HR were, of course, very involved, but I need to say that this was CEO-driven, and I think when we talk about culture, it's something very important. If it stays an HR topic, then it's very unlikely that it will have the right impact. But our CEO decided to launch a big work on the culture. So we've been surveying all our employees around the world. We've been surveying our suppliers, our partners, our customers, because we wanted to know what people enjoy about Steelcase and what are maybe the things that could change and be even better if. After that, we had a lot of workshops. It took really a lot of time to the executive leadership team to come with the behaviors they want to see happening in the company for the future. But the culture is for us a big driver and something that all our leaders are owning for their own organization. And we realized that to change culture, so to change behaviors, there are some ways that could make it more tangible, because culture is really something that is happening over time and everywhere, and sometimes behind the door, so you don't see what people are doing when you are not there. So not easy to change, but we believe that if you want to achieve different results, in fact, if you look at the top of the pyramids, which is results, if you want to achieve different results, you need to go backward. So meaning to achieve different results, you need different behaviors, and that's what our CEO wanted to tackle, right? What are the behaviors that would lead us to different results in the future? And to have different behaviors, this is where we get into beliefs. What are the people in your organization believing in, And here you can talk about leadership. Lisa was mentioning that you can reflect on the type of leadership you want to display. Where do you sit in your office? What is the behaviors you are displaying? This is telling a lot, and this is impacting the beliefs of your organization. And the beliefs are actually impacted by experiences. So in your daily life, you are all living experiences. So today, we are on stage. This is creating a belief. When you are in your office, if your boss is always, in a closed office where there is no transparency, it's creating beliefs. The beliefs is, okay, he's very important, I cannot disturb him, There is no way, I can have a chat with him. I'm not at that level. So again, if you want to change your culture because you believe that culture will drive different results, you need to look at the beliefs, and then you need to start designing different experiences. So that's what we've done for ourselves, because there was kind of a sense of urgency for Steelcase. So our market is not a growing market. The industry is kind of difficult. We all work very differently. We don't need those big offices anymore. We are all working on our cell phones. We are working in hotels, in airports. So the way people work has changed significantly. So our traditional market was shrinking. So it was very important for us to look at what else is out there, so we can keep the growth target we needed to be sustainable in the future. So for us, it was very important to reflect on how we could accelerate our ability to innovate, our ability to be more creative, and our ability to have decision made faster. Steelcase is a global organization. People are spread, very distributed. So decision making is not as easy as when you are in a startup, where people are usually co-located, and when you have quite a small leadership team. So for that, we decided to apply what we believe in, which is space matters. In fact, we've been reflecting on how we could have a space which would help us accelerate the new culture we wanted to have. And this is when we created the Learning and Innovation Center. So this space is in Munich. It's something which was not a refurbishment of something existing. So we created it from scratch. Actually, not the building. The building was existing, but Steelcase was not in there. And for us, it was an opportunity to work on 5 key objectives. So we wanted first to create an experience for our customers. Of course, we are providing solutions, spatial solutions to companies, and we wanted to create an experience so that people could really feel what we are talking about. We don't want to lecture people. We want people to feel what we are talking about, and we want them to experience. So customer experience was key. To drive the customer experience, we had 2 choices. Either we stage it, and we have some people that, are always hosting customers. We give them a script. They know what they need to do, and, at that time you need to do that. At another time you need to do something else. That's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to create something authentic. And to create that authentic experience and still be sure that we would deliver something impactful, we realized that we had to work on the employee experience. The only way our customers could have a good experience in our space was if our employees were living the experience, and that's why we put a lot of focus on the employee experience. And the employee experience is not only for people that are based in Munich, because this space is really an international hub where all people, Steelcase people, our partners, our dealers, are going there once in a while, depending on the needs. We are regrouping learning opportunities, but that's a space which is really accelerating our cultural transformation. Leadership was the third key objective. Culture goes with leadership. So we've launched a series of things to change our leadership, the space, and we will show you that. But we've launched as well some training for leaders, helping them to reflect on how to really help their team to do better in terms of performance. So we get rid of our own performance management system and we put it in place what we call impact coaching. The fourth objective was innovation. Innovation is key for growth, and for us it was a huge driver. And to achieve that, learning was the last objective. It has to come together to achieve all the rest. To create the right work experiences we wanted to see in the building, we started with the organizational ambition. And then we wanted to have a holistic look at all the parts that we believe are critical in the work experience. So we talked about culture, but you need to look as well at your processes, the way things are getting done. You need to look at the tools you are putting in place, and this is where this is highly connected with space. We are living in a digital world. We don't work the same way. We spend our time in telepresence, and we need to collaborate and make big decisions over telepresence. We cannot always be in the same room. We need to have tools that are helping us to be creative, like the board Lisa showed you at the beginning. So we've been looking at all that to create our own space. And here you would see a summary of what we got from all the employee interview we did, because of course we wanted to interview our employees, the ones that would be living in the space, but also the ones that would go to the Learning and Innovation Center from time to time. So a lot of workshops happen. And actually what we've learned is that we needed to work on a series of principles. So empower and trust, definitely. We talked about it. It's key. Everyone is talking about it. This is not easy to achieve. So this is when we pushed responsible autonomy. In fact, what we tried to change in our organization, and we are making progress, but it's taking time and it's hard work, is really making sure that our employees understand that we are all responsible for making the company better. So it means that we try to push decision down. People talk about it. Everyone wants to make decision on a theoretical point of view, but the reality is that it's not so easy. Because when your boss is telling you something, you are kind of secured if it fails. So that's all the transformation we try to push, working on leadership, but also working on all of us as employees. People were telling us they want to experiment, they want to go faster, they want to pilot, and we actually do a lot of things around creativity. Design thinking is a big topic at Steelcase, and design thinking is all about experimenting and piloting, so that's something we want to accelerate. They want to belong, because this space is an international space where we are regrouping teams that are coming from different environments with a lot of newcomers, and people were worried that they would not feel at home. So to do that, we've worked a lot on diversity and inclusion. We believe that diversity is a huge driver for success, but it's a driver for success only if you work on inclusion. Otherwise, it's likely to be more complex. Inclusion is absolutely critical. Collaboration, that's a big topic everywhere. Collaboration is key. We don't work anymore alone. We need teams to perform, and that's why we've been reflecting on how we can create effective teaming. Design thinking is also part of it, and space matters on this one. And authenticity, I already talked about it. And now we want to show you a few pictures of the space, and most importantly, explain you why we've been designing that like that. What is the intention behind it?
Maybe we are also getting back a little bit to what we've learned about ourselves. So one of the data peaks that we had in our own study was that people were always talking about collaboration. And collaboration in our previous setup was really tough, because we had innovation teams that were based in France, that were based in Germany, that were based in the US, and they had to develop things together, which is, tangible things, which is really hard to do. So if we talk about furniture, so we wanted to make sure that they have the space to collaborate, to see each other, not being in different buildings where occasionally you would see each other during lunch, if you are lucky. And when we took over this environment in Munich, these stairs were not existing. So this was one of the major investments that we did to the building. We said, okay, if we are going to take over the building. We want to make sure that the different floors are connected by a big stair. Otherwise, people would disappear in their floor in a certain spot, and it would be very hard again to collaborate and to see each other and to get those more informal collaboration happening. So as we understand from a lot of organization, collaboration and privacy is often the key topic when it comes to new environments. So you might have seen this in your own organization, coming from maybe enclosed offices to say, now we all have to go open office, and then you have rows of desks, and you say, oh my God, so depressive, and no one can focus anymore. So this is what we applied for ourselves as well, to say we want a maximum of collaboration, but a maximum of collaboration also needs privacy and needs focus in between, because collaboration and innovation doesn't mean that I can always be together with others. So I need to have time for myself as well. And what we're now hearing from our employees is that say, it's so great, I just take the stairs and I don't have to write another 4 emails because I do iMail. I see the other person, right? I talk to them directly, and it's not necessary always to rely on an email exchange. Then you were talking about leadership. I think that was one of the key topics. And by the way, we didn't ask our leaders what you want when it came to space, right? So we didn't ask like, yes, you want to have the mahogany kind of table that you're going to work and the special chair because you're the leader, you're something better than someone else. Talked about the discrepancy about pay as well. So we wanted to have a very democratic approach to it, but still allowing for some special needs that leader have in our organization.
Yeah. And for that, in fact, so when if you go there one day, you will see that we are on 5 floors, and of course the fifth floor is the most beautiful one. You know, you have a fantastic view on Munich. You know, the light is amazing, and we've been reflecting on: do we want to put the leaders on the 5th floor? And put them behind closed doors so they have the privacy, they can talk about the big topic they need to solve, and in fact not at all. So what we've been deciding to do is to put the leaders really on the 1st floor. So basically when you enter into our office, you move stairs, and this is where you would immediately arrive on the leadership floor. So the idea is to, so of course on that floor you would find different things, right? You have open spaces, you have big tables where we can be all together. We have private spaces because sometimes we are making calls, or we have a confidential discussion or a discussion where we don't want to bother the neighbors. So you would find a palette of choices, but this floor is really at the entrance, and basically when teams are moving in and moving out, they would cross that floor. And the intention is to say this floor is not only for leaders, basically everyone can come. Yet I need to say that we don't see that a lot still, people come and discuss with leaders. For us, it's not an issue. Leaders are available. But having people coming and sitting, not a lot are daring to do it. So we push for that. But this space is really the space where you have the more traffic in the entire building, because everyone is crossing the space in the morning and in the evening when leaving. And this is sending a very strong signal on the type of leadership style we wanna convey.
Again, a big change. So maybe you can go back just to add on this. So big change from where we were coming from before, right? It's not that we're just moved to from a same setup somewhere else to Munich. So we also had a leadership floor behind doors where the access was limited. So not everyone was able to come in. So they had to allow access for it together with HR at this time. So it was indeed a very big change and an intentional change to put the leaders in the center of the organization, literally, right? So using space as a way to inform culture and to trigger very different behavior. So what it does mean as a result is that leaders know what's going on in the organization, right? So how can you be a problem solver as a leader if you don't know what's going on in the organization firsthand, right? So if you're behind closed doors, what you will get is a lot of filtered information. And we wanted to make sure that they get first-hand information on employees, on clients, coming to our space as well, to not only listen to us, but also to share. And that's an important piece around our customer experience. So staying a little bit longer on this slide, because this was fundamental in changing our culture and changing the way our customers would also perceive us, but also reflect on their own culture. So thinking about the many clients we have coming and joining us in our Learning Innovation Center, this is the hottest topic that everyone is discussing, right? When it comes to space and leadership, they're the most discussions, but also the most direct feedback from a lot of employees and middle management. They always get out and say, I just had yesterday a group of people of a big insurance company. We really believe in what we are seeing here, yet our leaders will have to also see that and have to acknowledge that this is a way we need to pursue.
And maybe because I think we are coming at the end of the time, just maybe another space which I believe is kind of building on what Lisa was mentioning. So leadership floor is important, but we have another space in the building where we are creating connection, and that's what we call the work cafe. So basically, it's a place where you can have a coffee, you can eat a piece of cake if you want or not, but most importantly, this is a place where you would meet with people in a very informal way. You can work from there. Everything is designed so that you can have a nice work experience in that space. So basically you have plugs, you have screens, you have spots where you can be a bit private. But this is the place where all employees in the building or all employees that are not based in the Learning and Innovation Center would come at a moment in the day. So this is kind of the hub of the building, and by designing the right experience in that space, here again you really impact the way people behave and the way they work together. Collaboration is happening there in an impromptu way, so it's not staged. You don't have an Outlook notice in your calendar, but you would meet people there and very quickly solve issues or quickly align on let's go together in a room and let's work on the topic.
So we're not only here, obviously, to talk to you and to share our stories. We're really much interested to learn from you as well. What are the things that you're taking away? How do you connect also the different topics that you heard in relation to work environments and to your market, to your specific challenges? So any questions that you might have? We have the CEO here again. Great.
Can I talk loudly? No, I can talk loudly. Yeah, let's have other people here. Yeah. Need a mic.
Yeah.
So here we have a third one.
So first, congratulations. This look great, and also we are in this industry selling those things. So I'm very happy that this looks like an amazing project. I have three questions or areas of thought, if you can help me with that. We all use this notion of growth, like also related to people, that we have to grow and all that. But do you think that is it rather transformation, like, or just growth? Because usually, like people during their lifetime, they kind of shrink, not really grow after a while. It's a joke. Like spiritually, is it more about transformation? The second, you mentioned that you changed your or you gave in your performance management system, and you were doing impact coaching. Was this just in this center or in general? This was the second question. And the third, if this validated as a great working space and all the other things that you've done there, will you deploy it in all the other spaces or just keep it in the innovation? Thank you.
Yeah. So
I hope I wasn't too fast.
Absolutely, no. So I think it's an interesting theory or perception that when we are getting older, we're kind of shrinking. That might be true for our body. Physically, we're shrinking. Okay. So we have a lot of. Fortunately, we have a lot of data that growth is possible at any age, and that's how we would also look at our organization. Obviously, the mindset needs to be there, but again, also the experience need to be there, right? So I think that, again, when you have an environment that kind of signals, I'm finished, I'm joining this organization because I have my degree, I have maybe other work experience, and now I come here to just show off my expertise, that's probably not the right approach for a learning organization or an organization that looks at growth. And that is the toughest part when it comes to more experienced workforce, because obviously you're hiring for experience, you're hiring for expertise, but how do you balance that out knowing that our world is changing drastically, that it requires a mindset of a lifelong learner, right? That comes with a certain expertise as well. I love the example that we heard before, the MBA, so that gives you the body of an understanding how an organization or a business works, and then when you are learning, have a learning mindset, you can understand any business.
And regarding impact coaching, a bit of background. I told you about our cultural transformation. One of the key objectives was to push decision down, really to make sure that our decision would be better, by ensuring that the people who know the most would actually take it. And then we realized we were looking at some of the HR processes, and we realized that maybe there are some processes that were sending a conflicting message, and performance management is one of them. If you look at the traditional performance management system, this is a moment where basically, beginning of the year, the leader would tell you, you have to do this, this, this. And then at the end of the year, and maybe a few occasions during the year, you really review what has been done, and you say good, not good, good, not good. And based on that, you have merit increase, you have development opportunities, you have promotion or not. So if I make it easy, this would be, the traditional way to work on performance management. So we totally wanted to shift that, and this is when we created impact coaching. So impact coaching is about creating a partnership between the leader and his or her team. So it's not, the leader that knows everything, that is telling you what to do. Actually, it's really partnership. So we encourage feedback on the two sides. So this being said, it's hard work. I told you I would be transparent about our success and our failures. We are not there yet. We are on the right journey, but it's still hard to get to give feedback to your boss. Even when your boss are actually asking for it, open for feedback. I think as in our culture, maybe that's the way we are educated. In Europe, I don't know for Americas, but from what I hear from my colleagues, I think it's a challenge for them as well. So some are doing that well, some less. But that's what we want. So we want to create that partnership so that the discussion are all focused on how are we going to achieve the objective. So we don't look back. Of course, there is a moment of the year where you still, try to celebrate and try to learn from what has not worked well. But most importantly, impact coaching is about looking forward and having that partnership discussion between the employee and his leader on how will we solve the issue that we need to tackle. And this is totally transforming the performance management. And we are convinced that by doing that, we are actually driving a growth mindset, and we are getting better results. In a world where problems are getting more and more complex, where change is increasing, and we don't believe this will stop. Actually, I believe that change will keep increasing and that the world will keep getting more ambiguous. Ambiguity is one of the most difficult challenges that as an HR I faced when I was in front of employees asking me for clarity. And very often, as HR or as leader, we don't know. The answers are not existing yet. We have to deal with the ambiguity. And to deal with that, we see impact coaching as a way to help us. Third question. There was a third question. And do we want...
What happened?
No, the question is, would we do it for ourselves? So this space is a... Yeah, for us, yes. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge investment, right? So of course you need to make choices. So having a huge space like that, we have one in Europe, and this is the Learning Innovation Center. Yet the principle that I have been talking about with Lisa, those are applicable. The transformation of leadership, the fact that leaders are sitting amongst their teams, the work cafes are everywhere. But if you go to learning, what we display here, this is happening at the Learning and Innovation Center. But definitely, we cannot be only in Munich because our customers are everywhere. So we have work lives in Paris, in London, in Dubai, in a lot of
we have our
countries.
Partners as well, right?
Yes.
So here in Bucharest, we have a great space as well at COS that also is mimicking the principles that we have discussed here, obviously in a smaller scale. But what we typically would do is to say everything that you heard that is creating cost for an organization versus the investment of in a new space, an investment in a different experience to trigger different behavior and different leadership style, that's what you're then finally looking at, right? To say, what does it cost you if you just stay the same, you do nothing, you change nothing, but you still try to change the existing behavior in your organization.
Maybe, yes. A last word on that. When you have to convince your CEO about why would we change culture, why would we revisit our space, I think the why is very, very important. So you need to believe that if we've done that at Steelcase, it's not because we wanted to be nice, it's not because we wanted to create something beautiful, but it's because we believe that this was the way for us to stay in the game and to create an environment where people would be more effective, more creative, and at the end more innovative. Culture and space, and amongst many other things. But you need to convince your leadership team that it's an investment. It's not a cost. And it's not something we do because we want to be nice for our employees. Of course, at the end, that's a consequence, and we are super happy to create that. But originally, the why is very different.
So I think regarding timing, we're still in the room and also in the break, so you can approach us and ask us questions.
Yeah, maybe questions now, because we have a question there.
First of all, thank you very much for a very humble presentation, and we really appreciate what you've done, and I think it's really interesting. My question is related to using design thinking in the change management process, because I used it myself in redesigning processes for my previous company. So I was wondering if you have any learnings, any key things that worked or didn't work in using design thinking. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for the question. We are doing design thinking in our organization for the last 15 to 20 years now. And it was a bit of a religion in the beginning, I would say, right? Which I would not recommend to do so. Maybe it kind of helps to really impact beliefs. And obviously it also changed the experience and how we would tackle some of our problems, which from a principle side is very healthy. Right, because what design thinking is provoking is first that you start a problem solving instead of a statement with a question and with lots of hypotheses. So what is important to get the hypothesis out is because then you compare those hypotheses, which are often things that people are believing in and they have an opinion, but it's not data. And it doesn't really match, obviously, with that as well. So it helped our organization in terms of how we think around an opinion versus data. And I think that's, as a recommendation, I would like you to give, to say it should help us to tackle problems differently. And it also should help you to be faster. So what happened a little bit with us, because design thinking is about having lots of ideas as well at some point, and you somehow feel like, okay, now you have to narrow it down. And typically people are having difficulties to make choices, right? To say, oh, now I'm narrowing it down, and then they are totally lost with the amount of data, the amount of opinions and ambiguity. So I think using design thinking with a clear commitment that you will come to a solution and you will test it and you will learn from it very fast, then you will benefit from it, right? So if it's too large and ongoing because, we haven't thought enough about it, we need to think still about it, I think that's also not very motivating for people. It happened to us a while, and we were now able to take out and extract what really matters, and being a good problem solver, and therefore it's already ingrained in our DNA.
And maybe one learning to add to that is you can leverage design thinking for small problems, right? It's not always a very long process, and that's something we've learned over time, because we've been, as Lisa mentioned, our CEO was big on design thinking, and he was right. But at the beginning, when he started to talk about it, people were. So we launched a lot of trainings in the organization, and people had the feeling that it would be important only for big issues to solve. So basically, we were using design thinking for product or for, complex issues. What we've learned and what we push now for is to use design thinking for all type of decision. You can go fast on the different steps. So that would be another learning.
Other questions?
Maybe sharing of experience from other people in the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Do you disagree with things that we have talked about as well, right? So you have a different experience, you think...
Yes. I have two questions. Oh. I wanted to ask you what kind of challenges did you face when changing the culture regarding the resistance of change?
Yes.
That would be nice to hear from
sure.
you. Thank you.
So definitely, as soon as you want to change something, there is the resistance, Even if you want to create a positive change, resistance is still happening, because as human beings, change is not something that the majority of us feel good about. So changing our culture created some resistance. I would talk about middle management. For middle management, it's a difficult change. If you look at impact coaching, so for years, managers were perceived as the one who know things, they were telling you something. And now suddenly, we ask them to change their posture. And we've seen really people losing the sense of their purpose, wondering, why am I doing now? Why am I here? So that's why we add them. We have some training where we talk about it. We definitely try to create different experiences, but still, for some, it's a challenge. And for employees, if we stay on impact coaching, it's a challenge as well, because for some people, they want to have a boss. They want to have a boss that is telling them what to do, what to not do, because it's safer. When someone is telling you what to do or not to do, if it's failing, you can say, look, I was just executing. So many learnings, but this would be one. Middle management, and they are very important. They are an important part of the success, but they have to change their posture totally and be. In fact, with Lisa, we were really very pleased to see all the words about humility. We talk a lot about vulnerability. So we really encourage everyone and our leaders to show vulnerability, to say, look, on this one, I don't know, or on this one, I failed. I can share an example of our CEO, the CEO in the US, so really our big guy, if you want, the one that is reporting to the board. A few years ago, we changed a few things in our logistics system in Europe. And without entering into details that would not matter to you, but it created quite some challenges. Challenges that we had to work really hard to get back on track. So of course the rationale behind the decision was good. There is an explanation, but at the end the results were it was challenging. And he really stepped up and said, look, I made a decision, it was not the right one. We will now work really hard to correct it. So showing vulnerability, accepting failure, and getting to learnings, that's what matters, because of course no one wants to fail. Failing for failing is not a goal, but failing for learning, this is how you innovate. If you don't fail enough and not soon enough, you don't innovate. Or you could innovate more.
Thank you so much. How many HR directors or professionals get involved in deciding how the space will be for their employees, or they are mostly business leaders?
Mm-hmm. So when I look at my client base, unfortunately there are not a lot. So the room would be quite empty. And I think that the space of work and how people work is part of the consideration that we make in HR, and also performance is one. So I have a wish today is that we have more HR leaders sitting at a table when it comes to creating work environments and work experience specifically.
And I think this is, I think the answer might evolve market by market. In some markets, HR might have more of a seat, because I meet with a lot of HR, and where I see HR, it's when it's still, in the influencing phase. But then when it's about, the project in itself, sometimes you have an HR who is actually sponsoring the project. I just met with Glassner, it's the Center for Spatial Innovation in France, and they are thinking about their space, and the sponsor is the HR director. So it happens, but most likely, they will be in the. Still, I see a lot of them in the core team when it's about thinking about what we need. But we need more. We need more and more influence, because at the end, the space is what will create the behaviors that your leaders want you to drive.